Contrary to what most people imagine, our ancestors charging across savannas with spears taking down the biggest animals, for the majority of our timeline, we were the ones being hunted. And not just on land, but in the water and from the sky. The skies were especially dangerous for children. The crowned eagle, they were 40% heavier than the modern eagles, with a wingspan stretching up to 1.9 meters and razor-sharp talons curved like hooked daggers. Their diving speed was 120 kilometers per hour, enough force to puncture a skull instantly. We know this because of the Tong child, discovered in 1924 in South Africa. The fossil is the 2.5 million-year-old skull of a child. In 2006, Lee Berger compared the injuries on that skull with modern monkey victims of crowned eagles and found a near-perfect match. Puncture marks in the eye sockets, talon damage across the skull, identical to what a crowned eagle leaves behind today. The ground offered little refuge either. Our ancestors lived alongside some of the most efficient land predators ever to evolve. Leopards hunted with stealth, striking from cover before dragging their prey into the trees. Giant cave hyenas were roughly 60% heavier than their modern relatives and possessed jaws capable of generating around 4,500 newtons of force, powerful enough to snap a human femur, the strongest bone in the body, just to reach the marrow inside. We know these were not isolated dangers because the fossil record preserves the aftermath. At Thomas Quarry, one in Morocco, archaeologists uncovered a 500,000-year-old human thigh bone shattered at both ends and covered in deep bite marks, evidence that a giant hyena had broken the leg apart before consuming it. Combined with discoveries like SK-54, the pattern becomes difficult to ignore. Humans were definitely and actively being preyed on, and yet humanity persisted. Let's have a look at what our ancestors were like during that time. If you put a modern chimpanzee in a room with a leopard, the chimp has a fighting chance. Chimps have up to 4 times the explosive muscle strength of an average human. They can rip tree branches apart and climb out of danger in seconds. Baboons, on the other hand, are much smaller, but they carry massive, self-sharpening canine teeth that can slash open a predator's throat. Meanwhile, when Homo habilis walked onto the savanna, they had lost their sharp climbing claws. Their teeth were small and flat, completely useless for biting back. They were slow runners, and their upright bodies made them clumsy, awkward climbers. They had already traded away their defense mechanisms for bipedalism. On a landscape ruled by speed and teeth, they were the most defenseless primates alive. And yet, within a few million years, predators would develop a deep instinctual fear of even human voices and smell. Our ancestors couldn't fight, so they had to change how they lived. To reframe it in Charles Darwin's words, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. For millions of years, hominins wandered the landscape in loose, scattered numbers. If a predator found you alone, you better count your seconds. But around 1.8 million years ago, hominins stopped traveling alone. Anthropologists still don't know why it happened, but they started living in tight, organized groups, using numbers and constant vocal warnings to spot predators before they could strike. And we know this happened because the fossil record shows a sudden massive shift. Archaeologists began finding huge, dense clusters of stone tools and animal bones, all in the exact same spots. This is the first evidence of permanent communal home bases. This was our first plea for survival. But if we had to pick one step in our evolution that jumped our chances of survival, it would be fire. Many people, when learning about our ancestors and fire, imagine them creating fire through stones and friction. That part came later. Long before humans ever learned to use it, fire was already shaping the world in the form of lightning strikes, igniting dry grasslands, volcanoes spewing rivers of lava, and natural wildfires sweeping across the landscape. They would have watched these infernos from a distance, but eventually, curiosity gave way to opportunity. Rather than creating fire themselves, the earliest hominins likely scavenged it, carrying smoldering branches or burning logs back to their camps and carefully feeding them with dry wood to keep the flames alive. Maintaining a fire was far easier than creating one from scratch, and over countless generations they learned which wood burned the longest, how to preserve glowing embers through the night, how to build simple hearths, and even how to transport fire from one campsite to another. Archaeological evidence suggests that by roughly 1 million to 800,000 years ago, humans were controlling fire with increasing confidence, although some sites hint at even earlier use. Only much later did our ancestors master the ability to create fire on demand. By dragging fire inside that cavern, our ancestors created a wall that big cats and pack hunters simply refused to cross. For the first time in history, humans could sleep through the night in total safety. That sorted our defenses to some extent. Now it was time to switch to offense. Early humans didn't simply chase animals until they got tired. The archaeological record suggests they manipulated the landscape itself. At sites like Schöningen, the concentration of horse remains indicates that hunters were likely targeting entire herds rather than isolated individuals. Researchers have proposed that groups position themselves at natural bottlenecks where fleeing animals had fewer escape routes. Some hunters would have approached from behind to startle the herd, while others waited ahead with spears, forcing the animals into a narrowing corridor where panic worked against them, and the planning probably began long before the hunt itself. Unlike most predators, humans could choose a target, discuss an approach, prepare weapons in advance, and wait for the right opportunity. Individuals likely assumed different roles. Some acted as drivers, pushing herds toward an ambush. Others remained hidden until the final moment, while experienced hunters delivered the first spear thrusts. Once an animal was wounded, the group could maintain pressure from multiple directions, preventing escape while minimizing the risk to any single hunter. A hunt became a coordinated operation. Some anthropologists also argued that early humans increasingly relied on persistence hunting. Rather than sprinting after prey like lions or cheetahs, they exploited one of the rare abilities of the human body: endurance. Humans can cool themselves efficiently through sweating, allowing them to keep moving for hours in the heat of the day. Many hoofed mammals, by contrast, overheat if forced to run continuously. Hunters may have tracked a single animal for many kilometers, walking or jogging after it, until exhaustion slowed it enough for a final spear attack. This strategy turned one of humanity's greatest physical weaknesses, our lack of speed, into a surprising advantage. As weapons improved, so did the tactics. A spear was no longer just a sharpened stick. It became part of a larger strategy, involving reconnaissance, timing, terrain, cooperation, and patience. In 2023, scientists conducted an experiment in South Africa by placing hidden speakers at waterholes and playing recordings of ordinary human conversations alongside sounds from lions, hunting dogs, and other animals. The response was striking. Across more than 4,200 wildlife encounters, 95% of species, including elephants, giraffes, leopards, hyenas, zebras, and rhinoceroses, showed a stronger fear response to calm human voices than to the sounds of lions. This wasn't the result of one defining moment, but of many small changes that together transformed humans into the world's most formidable predator. This means that almost every trait we think of as uniquely human wasn't the result of a desire to conquer the planet. Instead, they emerged from countless small adaptations, each helping our ancestors survive a world that was trying to kill them. Our larger brains evolved to detect hidden dangers. Our close-knit communities formed because isolation meant death. Our technology was born to keep predators at a distance and push back the darkness. The human story is not the story of a species destined to rule the earth. It is the extraordinary story of the hunted gradually becoming the hunter.